Good morning. We are going to call this meeting to order.
All right. Mr. DeYoung, excused. Mr. Heisinger,
Present.
Ms. Pugh Walters,
Here.
and Chair Weatherall Neal.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to ask for approval of the agenda that you have in front of you.
Need a motion?
So moved.
I'll support it.
All right, take the roll. Mr. DeYoung, excused. Mr. Heisinger,
In favor?
Ms. Pugh Walters,
Favor.
and Chair Weatherall Neal.
Approved.
Great.
Public comments? Seeing there are only a couple of people here, we will say no to that. Next, we have discussion items, and the first item is the Michigan Treasury Development Plan. And Josh, I'm going to ask to lead that. Thank you.
Yes. So in your packet, we provided the approval letter that we received from the Michigan Treasury on February 5th. And this is the final step in the establishment of the Promise Zone Authority in this development plan. So the approval lays out that the base for tax increment financing will be set in 2019, as long as the authority fulfills its remaining requirements, which is to provide 2 years of scholarships in alignment with the plan, completely funded through other sources. That sets the base and provides the conditional approval of the development plan, which will move forward in implementing as approved in the board previously. So I also included the final version of the development plan along with the resolution that was passed by the board in January, as well as an attachment at the end.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for the update.
Thank you.
Josh, I will ask for Lisa Freiberger to come forward, the Grand Rapids Community College update.
And we also have Evan Macklin here with us today, too, who's the
Evan?
interim director, Promise Zone director at GRCC.
I thought Lisa would call her staff up. Thank you.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Perfect. And
You're
you
all
did
right.
my
You're
job
okay.
for me already as
Yeah,
well.
good.
I'd like to introduce Evan, who is acting as our interim director and doing a tremendous job. Thought it would be
morning.
good for him to come and meet you this
Good
morning
morning. Good
officially.
morning, Evan.
Just a couple of brief updates, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Certainly, we've named an interim director and started running with Evan kind of leading the charge, so to speak. We do have director interviews scheduled internally and then externally, and I believe that the two of you are joining us on March 9th for hopefully final interviews, and we will select an official Promise Zone director
Nice.
at that point in time. We're very excited to be able to move forward in that way. We have scheduled and held two informational meetings, if you will, for principals, counselors, superintendents, both on the 29th. We had excellent participation. Thank you for being there. That they were very well received, lots of great questions. We also held a data meeting on February 4th and had solid attendance as well. We had all but one school represented, and Evan has already made contact with that one school. We talked at that meeting about the data set that we would need to determine eligibility from all of the schools. We actually have two of the very small schools that have responded with their data already, which is great. We are moving forward. We have ways for them to, a template set up that really kind of lays out for them exactly what we need with some drop-down boxes for them to determine eligibility, yes, no, 50%, 100%. We are working with actually a team from JRPS on a data sharing MOU, which they have committed to getting to us in draft by tomorrow. We will get that out then once it's set with JRPS. That will be the bulk of it. We will get that out to the rest of the schools as well, and then I would anticipate the rest of the data coming in. We have asked for all of that data by next Friday with a goal for us internally to get then award informational letters out to all eligible students by the 28th of February. So we are on target to hit that mark, and that will be the first official communication from us saying you are approved, eligible for the Promise Zone Scholarship, and then start the process from there. We do have 4 FAFSA nights signed up or set up specifically for Promise Zone students and their parents if they so choose. Those were advertised, if you will, at the data sharing meeting, so we've asked all those schools to take those back, and we have also shared that with the schools in other ways. I think there's a flyer in your packet that Josh put together to provide those dates. We also have a parent and student Promise Zone celebration, if you will, scheduled for March 15th? 14th, March 14th, which aligns nicely with our college orientation, information, celebration as well. So we work with the Promise Zone parents and their students and parents, I believe from 9 to 10:30. And then from 10 to 2, we have just a college-wide open house where we'll have all of the departments represented, many of our offices that serve students represented. It's a chance for students and families to walk through and explore career options and academic paths, as well as all the clubs and orgs and everything that JRCC has to offer. So we figured those two would dovetail nicely. And I think that's all that we had to share. We are working on a number of, I'm gonna call them clarification details that we would plan on bringing to you at your March meeting. That would include things like specifics around what does it mean to meet successful academic progress. So we're working on that. We're working on at least a skeleton of an appeal process for you to consider. We are working on FAFSA deadline questions that we can bring to you to make sure that we get that all lined up. We are working on what it means if a student withdraws mid-semester, and would plan on bringing you all of those details at your next meeting.
You guys have been just a little busy.
We've been a little busy, but all good. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
We just appreciate what you guys at the college and Josh and Grand Rapids Public Schools and the other schools have been able to pull off for children, realizing that it has been a mad dash, but it's truly appreciated.
Great team and the right reason, for sure.
Yeah, good. Questions from any of the?
Is there
you.
anything in the plan, Lisa, that the college takes exception to?
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, is there anything in the plan that the college takes exception to?
Nope.
Good.
Nope, not at all. There are certainly things that we need to work through from a clarification standpoint, but we are working through those. And no concerns at all. We are very excited and very proud to be a partner with this, absolutely. No exceptions, just things that need clarified.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Awesome. Great partners. We now have some action items that we need to go through. And Josh, and if anyone else needs to join Josh, well, we will do that.
Yeah. So the first item under action items is the approval of eligible high schools. So within our development plan, we actually don't list what schools meet the statute. We lay out what the parameters are, and it's up for the board to make a determination of what schools meet or do not. There's a lot of leeway on what the board can and could not do. So we have been looking at a list of schools, and so when it was announced, there were a lot of questions about why it was a school included, why it was not. 2 of those in particular caused kind of the chairperson to get us to kind of talk about. So were we following the letter of the law too tightly in these situations? And we consulted with Chuck Wilbur at the Michigan Promise Zone Association, who helped draft the law, and try to get some clarification. There were 2 of those instances where the chairperson, ultimately made that decision, but felt that we were just interpreting the law way too tightly. Even Chuck Wilbur told us that, and so those 2 were Next Tech High School and the West Michigan Aviation Academy. So that's the 2 new schools you're seeing on your list since the last time that we met. And in order to we felt that it was important for the board to just kind of state at this point, here's the schools that we, the executive committee and the board, that we determined to be within the Promise Zone development plan. So those are in front of you. And again, just to go over those two schools, Next Tech, we have a lot of conversation about virtual schools, which is a fuzzy area in the act, and we determined that those fell outside of what we would start with. However, this case, there's various categories of virtual. This being what they call a face virtual, where a majority of the students' time is in the classroom in the city of Grand Rapids, in the Promise Zone Authority. So determined, okay, that there should be some leeway there. The other virtual schools that are strictly virtual are still not included in the development plan. West Aviation Academy had the distinction of being the only high school that was within the city boundaries, but was not in the Promise Zone boundaries. And so we consulted, with Chuck, and he mentioned the spirit of the law. We're serving the city's students here. So still, with these schools, it's still only the city resident students are the only ones who would qualify for the scholarship. So that was the reasoning for that. And we sent that communication out to the board because there was urgency in getting them a part of all the things that we just heard about to be able to prepare to serve the city's students. So this list is before you for consideration and approval to move to the full board.
And as your chair, I absolutely agree. And we do want to serve children in the city of Grand Rapids. And both of these schools do meet our intent. And so I thank you for that. And thanks for Chuck for bringing that to us as well. So I would ask first for a vote for approval of the schools listed.
I'll make that motion.
Support.
And I'll take the roll. Mr. DeYoung?
Approved.
Mr. Huizenga?
Approved.
Ms. Pugh Walters?
Yes.
And Chair Weatherall Neal.
Yes,
Motion passes.
thank you.
Thank you. So also in action items, we have approval of the MOU between the authority and Grand Rapids Community College for administration of the scholarship. You've already heard and hopefully seen that they've done a lot of work. We would not be where we are without their assistance. But it's come to the point where the contractual relationship needs to be established.
That's right.
And so we essentially took the job description that was provided, or not we, GRCC took the job description that we all reviewed and turn that kind of into MOU of what the functions of their role would be with some other language. But really what it comes down to is they're providing a full-time director as well as office support that they've already been provided for people who call and email for questions, and just their whole team has been a part of this and will continue to be, with the director being be the primary conduit between GRCC and the authority and really overseeing the administrative role of the scholarship. In return, the MOU is for 3 years. $100,000 would be for the first year, and then there would be a 3% increase annually to the end of the contract, at which point it'll be considered again, or see how it changes. So I'm ready to answer any questions that you have about the MOU for this role. And we do have the GRCP folks here too, if there's any specific questions.
No questions. I would ask for a motion to approve our MOU and contract with CC.
I'll make
So
the
moved.
motion. I'll support it.
I'll take the roll. Mr. DeYoung?
Support.
Mr. Huizenga?
Support.
Ms. Pugh Walters?
Support.
And Chair Weatherall Neal.
Support.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to the next item is another MOU between the authority and the Grand Rapids Community College Foundation for administration as the fiduciary of philanthropic funds. And that's a pretty straightforward MOU. They will handle administration, reporting, tracking of donors, tracking of intent, making sure that intent is fulfilled with specific donors. When we submit grant applications, it'll all be under their EIN number. We'll support them in that, of course, in completing the grant proposals and cultivation steps. And in return, their administration fee would be 2.25% of the funds that would go into the foundation for the purpose of the Promise Zone. Again, this is a 3-year MOU, and that 2.25% carried throughout.
Josh, I have a quick question.
Oh, go ahead, JC.
Yeah, be my guest, Kate. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's the delay when you're on the phone.
Yep.
So will that 2.2% cover the executive director's salary?
Not of the foundation, it would not. So it's going to be a pretty minimal amount when you multiply $3 million by 2.25%. It will. The foundation believes that would cover their expenses to administer these funds and all the things that go along with that.
And is the executive director an employee of the college or of the college foundation?
So just to make the distinction, there will be a Promise Zone director that will administer the scholarship that was part of the last MOU we just approved. That will be a GRCC employee. And then there is a director of the foundation who will continue to be a foundation employee. Yeah.
Kate?
And then who is, yeah, go ahead.
Lisa Freiberger is also at the table to answer additional questions you may have.
Okay. Hi, Lisa. I don't know if this is a Lisa question or a Josh or a Teresa question, but who supervises the director of the Promise Zone?
The director of the Promise Zone will be supervised and report directly to myself and our provost jointly, as this role will really cross between finance and financial aid administration and academics.
And I assume that the Promise Zone Authority Board or Teresa or the executive committee will have an opportunity to provide input on performance.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'm done, JC. It's all yours.
Okay, thanks, Kate. So, Josh, with the, or maybe this is a Lisa question. As the, I would assume in the future we'll broaden out to additional colleges that offer admission through the Promise Zone as well. Would the community college also be the agent for the other colleges? How does that work?
I think my answer would be that would be to be determined. This agreement would be for 3 years. Under which, to which point then you'll get to the point where you're capturing tax capture as well as actual donations from a fiduciary standpoint. So I think that that will need to be revisited when we hit that point, and whether you wish as a Promise Zone board for the GRCC Foundation to continue to act in a fiduciary capacity for the entire thing, or whether you at that point in time, based on where the Promise Zone is and level of participation at that point, that you'd want to make a different have a different conversation about whether it's continued solely, whether it's split in some fashion or moved.
Fair enough.
So
Thank
it
you.
is my hope that within the next 2 years, we would be ready to have the conversation about other universities and colleges joining this. And that would be 12 months in advance for CC or for whatever it is that we choose to do. But knowing that we were starting early, we wanted to start with CC. But it is our intent, and it was always our intent, that we would add our universities and other colleges as well.
I know that we've got interviews scheduled in the near future. We talked about that a little bit ago. Have we determined, or is the wage of the position going to be determined by the college, or is that a Promise Zone board? I don't recall talking about.
It would be in line with what the college pays for.
Okay.
Yes, we've put that position in its full job description through our standard classification process.
Okay.
Made that determination, and it's within the range of what we've requested.
Seeing there are no more other questions, I would call for a vote.
We need a
Jason.
motion?
We would make you.
Oh, I'll make the motion.
Support.
I'll take the roll. Mr. DeYoung,
Support.
Mr. Huizenga,
Support.
Ms. Pugh Walters. Ms. Pugh Walters? I wonder if she's disconnected.
Kate? She must be disconnected.
And Chair Weatherall Neal?
Support.
Okay, motion
can-
passes.
Can someone try to get Kate back on the phone for me? Okay. That's what I thought. My phone just went off as well.
She can hear, okay.
Oh, she can hear us. Okay, good, yeah.
Okay, as a final action item, one of the next steps that I feel strongly that the authority needs to.
Hold on, Josh.
Okay,
Let's get
yeah.
Kate back on the line.
I'm gonna stop sharing and see if.
It's only GRPS. Everybody else's technology works.
Yeah, I still want these right here.
This is nice,
Those are great.
yeah. John, Julie is calling you. The marketing piece is pretty important for everyone to understand. We had quite a few questions around that, and I just want to make sure that Kate has the opportunity
Yeah.
to weigh in as well. We want to have as many voices as possible so that we can get as many children, young people, and parents as possible. So important that we are pretty inclusive. So before we got these, we'd have to all turn around, and it was
Yeah,
just,
that's awkward. Read that. There's a lot of buzz out there about this.
Josh, the 2.9 number that we have to fundraise toward, that's the same number that we've been working toward from the beginning?
The beginning being December, I guess.
yeah, no, it's
Yeah,
great buzz.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great
Good.
buzz.
Just want to make
It
sure.
is
we're
taking-
rounding it up to 3 million, but yeah, as a goal, yeah. But again, that number will become more clear as we
We're getting
get
questions, yes.
students identified and they start enrolling, then we'll see how that holds up against our projections.
Addresses and things confirmed. And I asked John this question too, but the city of Grand Rapids rather than the public school attendance rate, we're getting that straight.
You know what I would like to see at some point? Are you able to reach her? What I would like to see at some point is some type of a database that is sort of universal, so that CC is not dealing with, different ones. And even once the colleges or universities come on board, it'll be much easier, right, if we do come up with some, I don't know what it is,
Never thought about that.
some universal
They're
type.
going to be seeing it from different sources.
Right, and it's hard to,
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We got a little echo.
Right. How about now?
That's
It's
good.
fine, it's good now. Good.
thank you, Kate, for being patient with us, and thank you to the other board members here for being patient.
Yep.
Kate, we are moving on to D, which is the marketing services, and I thought it important that you hear this so we can have questions, any questions that any of us may have, to make sure we cover as
Yep.
much as possible.
So To begin, so we feel this is a really important step that the authority takes at this point to have a marketing partner and have a full-fledged marketing and communications plan with the budget and all. We've done a fairly good job, I think, of doing what we can with the resources that we have, but I think more needs to be done to really promote this scholarship, especially when you're looking forward to the class of 2021. So in order to find the partner, so we drafted an RFP that's in your packet to release publicly and have a competitive process to find the partner. Chairperson Neal has asked that we invite the board members that are not on the executive committee to be part of a committee that would actually review, interview finalists, make a selection to propose back to the full board at the March meeting. And so you see the schedule here. If the executive committee approves today, it will be released tomorrow, and then there would be a period of time for. We have a couple associations identified, as well as a list of all the marketing firms in Kent County that we'll send it directly to. We will also send it to the board members, the authority board members, and ask that they forward it on to anybody that they are aware of, and let them know who it has already went to try to just get it out there as widely as possible. So if there are sites that you're aware of that I might not be or we might not be, you can email me and say, I really think we should post the RFP here, just to make sure that we're providing it as widely as possible to find the right partner. And so by February 26th, any marketing firm looking to respond would have to get us their questions, and that would be electronically by email. By March 4th would be the deadline for proposals. And then March 11th and 12th, that's one of the criteria for the committee is to set aside the afternoon on those days to be available for interviews with finalists on those dates. At the final date, whatever after that final interview, is when that committee would come together and develop its recommendation to the board. Bless you. And on March 16th is when the March board meeting is, and that's when they would consider the recommendation from the committee and act on a contract to hire the finalist selected. So kind of, I think it's important that we walk through what the scope of work is under the RFP, just so you kind of see the breadth of what we're requesting. And this is on page 3 of the RFP, the bulleted items toward the top of the page. So we're asking for a scope of work that includes updating and maintaining the Promise Zone website, and we want important things, ease of user navigation, information sharing both ways, and then mobile access we feel is important as well. Create media strategies. So if you recall, in our development plan, we've set aside $40,000 for the first year with 3% increases each year for marketing. So utilizing that budget, but also leveraging other budgets for partners, so our school partners, the city, all the different partners that have a stake in reaching our target audience and increasing post-secondary enrollment, leveraging those budgets first. So that'd be print, broadcast, digital, online, email, and social media, designed to engage our target audiences, which are students, parents, partners, and those things. Design and creating and designing digital and print media materials, developing content and translating into various languages, and so we'll work with them, but certainly Spanish and Swahili are two that have come up quite frequently, but there are others, so we'll kind of work with them to determine which languages these items need to be translated into to reach our target audience. Media planning and buying, developing, maintaining targeted media lists, develop and maintaining target lists of key contacts, and these are our partners, and we do have a good working list of these individuals now that we've been working from, but to continue to build that list and ensure that everybody that needs to hear our messages are hearing them. Manage media relations. So GRCC has been gracious in providing that service up to this point, but I feel that this firm would take on that role. When we send out a press release, they would be the media contact primarily under this current scope of work and manage that relationship. So there's no especially as, looking forward as we add colleges, there's no misunderstanding that this is only a GRPS, program, or this is a GRCC scholarship of some sort. We want to kind of create our own identity in this process. Create strategies to engage community partners, to reach audiences. So that's not more than just the media, the mediums that we identified above, but that's also community presentations and setting up those kind of things and making sure we have the proper materials to communicate to the audiences in person. And that's going to be a board role. That'd certainly be the Promise Zone director role in determining and going and attending these things. And then also creating and tracking metrics. So how do we know that these strategies are working? We'll have enrollment numbers, but also there'll be other actions that we'll be asking the students to take as part of this media strategy. And so how do we know that these strategies are working? We want them to have a process so the board can know and look at, okay, here's what we're tracking, and here's how we know that we're tracking with our strategy, or we need to shift at some point. So that is the scope of work that we've identified and that the marketing firms would respond to.
Josh, I would like to have, make sure people understand that they need to give us updates on a regular basis, right? Because when we're talking about families that may be harder to reach, I'd like to know what their experiences are in working with families. So it isn't just we sent it out and they didn't come.
Right.
That doesn't work with me.
Yep.
And so they should understand that won't go very far. Thank you.
So that would be in that feedback loop. Yep. Thank you.
I'm trying to envision, Josh, how it actually works. And it seems like we have basically 15 marketing agents, right? One at each high school. And so we can be fairly targeted, not necessarily broadcast. Or am I wrong?
Well, I think there's, and GRCC is actually, I think, working toward maybe doing a billboard. When you think about, and we use this example, but the Kalamazoo Promise, right? So what has that done for the community? There's more that it did than just target it. By targeting the students and parents would have known, but making it known to the community and outside the community that this is available, this investment in students, kind of builds, the buy-in of the private industry that see the benefit of the students that are coming out of this. Maybe this does improve, business attraction and retention strategies. So there's some of those things, and just knowing, in various ways. So that'll be the challenge, though, because $40,000 is not a huge marketing budget. So we have to be careful on how we target it, but certainly those things, and through the great work that GRCC has done and is doing, we'll be able to identify the eligible students after the first count day of 10th grade. So we'll know those students are on track, and we want to communicate with them early as well. Even before that, but it's targeted to the students that we know are eligible for the 100%, 50% scholarship, and making them know that get to the end point, and this is available to you if you maintain these things. So that'll be part of the strategy, and we want the firms to be creative in how they implement, right, and do those things. But you're correct, the targeted is the most important.
To follow up on JC's comment, what would be the coordination, right, between all of these entities?
Yeah.
Right, because there's actually 24 of us.
Okay.
Right,
is.
and so what would that look like? And so they should know, then our expectations are that they would work across the city, right, with all of these entities. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the opportunity for miscommunication from 24 high schools is, I would think, relatively high without somebody's close attention to managing that messaging with them and maintaining. And I also think was thinking how important it's going to be for us to, at the individual high school level, to make sure that we've got key contacts that are identified, and as they change over the coming years, there has to be some nod to the importance of that.
Yeah. So there is, through the GRCC's process that we've established, we've asked that each school identify a Promise Zone key contact person that's identified on an at least on an annual basis, when they provide the student data, and we'll have all their contact information, so that keeps that up to date as a little bit. But we also will have to, because things change in the course of a year, so that I think that's something that we can communicate to the.
And I would like to see that with not only the contact person in each school, but it should also be the superintendents,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so both.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other questions about the marketing? Seeing there are none, then I would ask for a motion to approve the process.
So moved.
So moved.
I heard two.
Support.
Perfect, thank you. All right, let me take the roll. Mr. DeYoung,
Support.
Mr. Heisinger,
Support.
Ms. Pugh Walters,
Support.
and Chair Weatherall Neal.
Support.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Again, in line with the board procedure, I would ask if there are any public comments. Seeing there are none, thank you. I would ask for committee member comments. Kate, any comments, closing comments?
Nope, I'm excited, ready to get started.
Good deal, thank you. Tom,
No comments at this time.
thank you. Jesse?
No, I don't think I've got any comments either.
No comments from me. This meeting is adjourned.